Our second goal is to expose the works of darkness, starting with entertainment, a device the devil uses to control your mind and soul.
Wow.
Why? Because these are the subjects that are interwoven into a lot of your entertainment. Don't let them burn. This is Chris from Don't Let Them Burn. Welcome to our review of Shazam, the boy that becomes a man. No, but seriously, this is our review of Shazam, and this is a Christian movie review. If you are easily offended, now is the time to back out. At the same time, this is a spoiler review. Again, if you don't like spoilers, now is the time to back out. As we move forward, we're going to be breaking down this movie in ways that I haven't seen many people break down. Of course, we try to do that somewhat exclusively on this channel to give you the breadcrumbs to follow when it comes to all of this strange esoteric knowledge, and then we lead you back to the truth, which is Jesus Christ. And so now I have Kevin Shrum joining me again to break down this movie from DC, which has made a lot of money in the theater, and it's geared towards mostly teenagers and, the fatherless. So it's an important thing to recognize, and it's a fun romp and everything like that. But at the same time, there's a lot of dark energy or dark subject matter inside of this movie. Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
Doing good, Chris. Good to be with you as always. And, this is the kind of movie I wish I could just watch a movie for enjoyment. But, for me, that's not been possible in a really long time. But, for this movie from DC, to me, it's one of their better movies. And, actually, it mirrored the comic series in a way. The original comic series that came out was sort of innocent and sort of family friendly, which this movie seemed to reflect in some ways. But, but underlying there was the Egyptian mythos and the pantheons and the gods and the magic that came through that, always just sort of left you wondering why was this in the series at all.
Right. Yeah. When I found out that sort of stuff, because I read some of it, I think, when I was younger, and I watched a couple of the cartoons and some of the failed TV shows back when I was growing up. So I wasn't too into Shazam, but I knew that when he called on the name, something miraculous happened. And so really finding out what it's really about now really put a lot of things together for me, especially when it comes to this old pantheon of 6 gods. Go ahead.
Exactly. And, I guess it was just been every kid's dream, to suddenly turn into an adult and be the hero with all these powers just by saying a magic word. And, that's what happened there to Billy Batson. He became, an adult. And, some way, this movie mirrored the movie Big with Tom Hanks. Matter of fact, one of the scenes there where they're strolling across the piano keyboard there.
Yeah.
In that, was a throwback to that.
Yeah, yeah. And, Big it's sort of almost the same story, really, because the guy goes to an amusement park and he walks up on a magical machine, and guess what? Now he's a big guy, hence the movie title, Big. So if you haven't seen that movie, that's basically what it's all about. But go ahead.
Yeah, and I remember I had a Mego Shazam toy when I was little, and watched the cartoons and watched the TV show there. But just never really got into the hero as much as I did maybe Marvel or DC characters. But and then there's a long battle there between the original publishers of what, as he was originally known, Captain Marvel, and what later became DC Comics.
Right, and we kind of explained this before, but we'll do it again. DC and Marvel, like you said, had a court rival about the name Captain Marvel because of Kirby, and Marvel won the name. That's why you see Captain Marvel in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and in the comics, and Miss Marvel and all this other stuff. So they basically changed the original Captain Marvel to Shazam. They kept that as his moniker for the rest of the, as the years went by. So if there's any confusion, that's why.
And two, go back. there must be something about this name, Chris, because I mean, there's been several court battles over it. Actually, his very character, the first appearance of Shazam or Captain Marvel was in Wiz Comics. It was put out in February of 1940 by Fawcett Publications, and basically he was just I guess you could say just a clone of Superman. You know, had a different costume, a little different origin, and that's what the comic publishing company that would later become DC. They sued Fawcett, and there was a battle during the 1940s, and Fawcett delayed it for years. And if you remember in the movie, that's where they went to school, was at Fawcett, a high school there, in the one scene when they were there in the cafeteria. But they fought. They had a fight there, and DC actually won, and they had to quit producing. And of course, DC went on to the 70s to start making Shazam comics.
Yeah. What's interesting is there was a movie came out with a lot of good reviews and everything, but now that I'm looking at the box office numbers, it didn't make as much as maybe it was predicted or what you would say could have made. Worldwide, it has only made $288 million and over, right? So this doesn't look like it's going to be the success that DC or Warner Brothers would have hoped for. At the same time, I think it carries on the legacy of the movie franchise for what's next, because I think they're already planning a part 2, and of course Wonder Woman is coming behind it.
You know, the rumors are, the next film will be a prequel, with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, playing Black Adam, and that, just his name being on the movie will get it, give it a lot more ticket sales. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I guess we could start going into some of the symbolism that's found in the movie and the comic books. And I guess we could start off with the Wizard and how he got his powers and who he transfers his powers to. So the Wizard got his powers through these 6 Egyptian, or just a pantheon of gods that gave him the power to be this hero in his time. And he also had other heroes that would basically do the bidding as well. And so they have this kind of like what looks to me like a throne room. Right now it's called the Rock of Eternity, but it has another name. So as time went on, the heroes, so-called, died, and now the last one is this final figure. He takes the villain of the movie when he was a child to see if he was worthy to get the Eye of Sin, and he tried, and then it was found out that basically his heart was black, and so he got put back into his place, into a car wreck and everything like that.
Well, yeah, temptation by the demons to give him a test there.
Right. Yeah, it was a test. And so then later on in the future, Billy Batson is doing his thing as I get homeless kid. So he gets taken into a foster home with other kids, with 7 other kids, and then he's protecting his friend, but he's getting bullied by some kids at school, and then those children later on are following him in the subway station, and he hops on a train, and he gets away and all this other stuff, and then he sits there, and then all of a sudden people on the train disappear, and these symbols light up on the train, and all these lights start flashing or whatever, and then all of a sudden he's in this magician's lair, and then the magician tests him and finds out that he's worthy and gives him the power of Shazam, and that's the magician's name. And then we'll break down as we keep going the name and what it means, what it meant then and what it means now. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to go in those symbols. We've tried to decode them, and they're most undoubtedly Egyptian runes. But one that really stood out to me in the comic and then in the movie itself, the first symbol there is, to me, it has to be the Eye of Horus. Savannah used those 7 symbols as he was apparently, the wizard had been reaching out, and the number on the here we're going to see a remarkable, I guess, series of sevens used in this movie. And here we have, as this Dr. Savannah is looking, he's going through, and there's accounts where the wizard had contacted others trying to find people pure of heart. And there were actually 56 occurrences of this that Dr. Savannah had used, and he'd had his laboratory investigating all these accounts. So there you have times 8 for the 56. And then he had finally put together all the symbols. The last one, as he was interviewing this lady that had this occurrence, she had solved the symbols, and they'd come up on her alarm clock. And she'd actually gave the picture to him, and when he sees it, he fills in that symbol, and that opens the door for him to actually go there to the Rock of Eternity and meet the wizard and get the eye. But as I said, to me, that first symbol has to be the Eye of Horus, and that is a very mystical symbol in the Egyptian symbology. Of course, that's the symbol there of the falcon god, his eye. And there were some interesting things about that in itself, that they would use amulets of this as they were treating people medicinally. And they would actually use it for measurement. And just the way that's written out, that Eye of Horus, is the way it's drawn out. Actually even saw an article from history.com where they said that is where our symbol RX comes from, was from the Eye of Horus.
Yeah.
So and just a little bit about it, though, as far as in Egyptian mythology, in one of his battles with Set, when his eye was taken out, it was cut up into pieces, 6 pieces, and they were able to, and that's the way some of the fractions go on the way they were dosing out their medicines. But there was apparently 1/64 left of that eye, and that missing piece is said actually to be the third eye. And if you once again look at that Eye of Horus, it does look like the pineal gland. So a lot of symbology in these symbols, and it'd probably take a long time to mine all that out.
Well, as long as we're on the eye right now, we have the eye of sin. It's went into Dr. Savannah's right eye, which is what Jesus pointed out, right? And about plucking out your eye if you sin or whatever. And also, like you mentioned, Eye of Horus, enlightenment, illumination, secret knowledge, because before this, he was seeking the knowledge, seeking the gnosis, and he finally got a way to break into the world of the wizard when he was older, right? And so from there, these demons tempt him more and tempt him more and tempt him more. He takes the eye and it flies into his right eye, and then these demons are inhabiting him, these 7 so-called deadly sins, and they're all manifestations, real physical manifestations of each sin. And again, he becomes this supernatural being that has as much strength and power as Shazam, and takes over his father's boardroom and murders people and all this stuff. So the symbology here is that if you have enlightenment from the dark side, you can do what you want to do, which is what Aleister Crowley taught and other magicians and occult teachers. Go ahead.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Matthew 5:29, that's when Jesus said, if your right eye offends you, pluck it out. And we've talked about just on past shows with the cyborgs, it's always the right eye, and that's the eye according to the book of Zechariah, chapter 11, verse 17. That's the eye. That's the eye that will be put out on the Antichrist. Will be his right eye. So that right eye is very symbolic, and that's the eye, the all-seeing eye you have on your dollar bill. That's the right eye. It's always the right eye, and that's the eye that here we have pictured as the eye of sin. And you made some good points that this man was demonically fused. He was demonically powered. And so there we have that once again, as told in a lot of these stories, if you want power, you've got to go to the dark side to get the power. And as a matter of fact, one of the quotes in the movie, when they talk about the magic, they said it takes magic, I guess, just to paraphrase, to beat magic. So to beat the magic of the wizard, Savannah there wanted, magic to defeat that. So it takes magic to defeat magic. And I don't know if you want to go with that, Chris. There.
Well, yeah, definitely. This all goes back to the yin and the yang, fusion of opposites or opposites battling each other, a balance in the force, the demonic power, like in Star Wars. That some of that came from Buddhism and Hinduism and all these other things. So even though Black Adam is Shazam's ultimate doppelganger, this guy right here is a shadow of that.
Right.
Because you see him as this guy that's wielding evil magic, but Shazam, he's using white magic. So here we have the left hand path and the right hand path, and I can go on with a whole bunch of other different names to tell you that it's all the same thing. It's just labeled different. That's it. But magic is evil. The Bible says that magic is of the devil. This is about magic, total, just like Harry Potter and some of these other films. But I don't want to get into that right now. But you get what I'm saying. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a white witch. A witch is a witch. She draws her power from the dark side, no matter what they want to say that they are, they're using good magic. There is no good magic. So either your power and your strength comes from God, or it comes from Satan and his demons. I mean, there's no other choices in this matter. But this movie wanted to present it in an otherwise fashion. As you said, it goes back to all other stories that you want to read.
Yeah, and there's also a term out there called chaos magic, and Sylvana, he basically represents chaos, right? And then you have sigil magic and all these things, all the same. It's just different names. That's it. I just have to keep bringing that up to you guys, so you really understand what these movies are trying to teach you or your kids. Even though most people aren't going to get up there and try to do magic, there are people that are susceptible to the secret teachings, and that's a fact. So without going off into another area, let's keep going.
Okay, and you mentioned those 7 deadly sins and those demons behind them. I just want to give you their names. There's pride, and he was the most powerful and dangerous of all the enemies, according to Captain Marvel. Mm-hmm. It represents the desire of one to be more important or attractive than others. Envy, it represents one jealousy over others and desire to deprive a man of something he loves. And that was the one he had to coax out of him. That was the last one that he couldn't get out of the Dr. Savannah there at the end, and he finally got him out. Greed, it represents insatiable ambition and desire to possess more than one needs. Anger, it represents uncontrollable feelings of hatred and violence. Sloth, it represents laziness and apathy. Gluttony, it represents overindulgence and overconsumption of anything to the point of waste. And then lastly was lust. It represents excessive desires or thoughts of the sexual nature.
Right. Even though lust is a little broader than that. Yeah. Lust is a feverish desire for anything. Like we mentioned before, the fandom or the fanatic kingdom is a feverish desire for entertainment. That's what a fanatic is. So, or not just a fanatic there in that context, but in other contexts too, like, political stuff and, religious things. They used to have this fanaticism. And so it's always feverish, going for that goal. So anyway, just want to put that 2 cents in there. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I guess it was just interesting, it was envy. That was, it was pictured as the least of those. And, that was the hardest one for Shazam to defeat, because once the demons came out of the Doctor, he lost all his powers, and that's the only way Shazam could defeat him. He had to get these demons out of him. And so you notice here you have him actually, he was performing an exorcism here. That's how he won the battle to defeat the Doctor. So in so many words, the I guess you could say the good witch exorcised the demons out of the bad witch or warlock in this film. So there, once again, you have yes, the yin and yang here working against each other with these demonic principalities in this film.
Yeah, and that's some of the stuff you'll see in Roman Catholicism when it comes to these exorcisms. Some of these guys are casting out Satan with Satan. So, that's a little tidbit there too. But, as far as the numbers, the sevens, I want to cover that a little bit so people understand that we're not just, talking without any facts here. When you go into the Kabbalah, basically the Zohar, and Aleister Crowley's writing on 777, and it said the title is 777 and Other Kabbalistic Writings of Aleister Crowley. You'll see these patterns in there, and I won't give you the whole, breakdown, but it's basically coming from Jewish mysticism, witchcraft, numerology, and it also has to do with the 5 elements, or in this case, it's the 5 astrological elements, but there's always a 6th element too, and I'll break that down another time. But this 777 is a pattern you'll see within this movie, and I'll have Kevin tell you about that. Here you go.
Yeah, this one really blew my mind, Chris, as I've always liked the number 7, so I guess that's why it jumped out to me as much. Of course, you had the 7 deadly sins, you had the 7 council members, but then there were some things in there that maybe if you weren't just looking for it, you wouldn't have noticed. But when Billy gets off, he's going to his foster brother to help him locate his real mother, which he'd been separated since he was just a young toddler. And he locates her, and he goes to the building. And when he gets off the building, it's on the 7th floor. And I'm going to try to capture that screenshot for you this week, Chris, and maybe we can post it to the Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as he gets off the elevator, you can see a 7 on the elevator, and then you can see a 7 right next to it. And he walks. I mean, he don't walk any, length at all. And then you see another 7 there on the wall, all over a case where they had the case you break in case of fire with the axe in it. So you could see the 3 7s almost instantly when he gets off the elevator. Then he walks down to his mother's room, and she's in room 707.
Mm-hmm.
And then to him, she mentioned she was only 17 years old when she had him as a baby. So all those 7s really really working on my mind there, seeing all that in that one scene.
Yeah, most people won't even catch it, and if they do, they'll be like, it'll just go right over their head, and that's the point. We put it in front of you, and if you don't see it, then oh well, you're the stupid one. That's how they think. So
I'd never even noticed till we were talking about it earlier. The logo, the lightning bolt. It's 7. I mean, you can see the outline of 7. There's 3 7s in the actual lightning bolt on his chest, and that's one thing I'd never ever saw before this movie.
Yeah, and also the lightning bolt. If you don't know out there, it's a representation of Satan. And sometimes it's seen as a snake, because we broke it down before about the seething energies of Lucifer that Manly P. Hall talked about. That's when a Mason comes to this enlightenment. He has to know how to manipulate energy, the dynamo. And as you see in this movie, he's basically using the lightning bolts of Zeus in his hands, the seething energies of Lucifer, to do all these powerful things. It means more than that. We're going to break that down in a second. But I just want you to really pay attention to, it's all about symbolism with a lot of these movies, not just what's in front of your face. And this is the mirror of who Isis or Captain Marvel in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I really look for these things when I watch movies, because I know that these producers and directors and writers, they put these things in there intentionally. And they said most of them just falls between or falls out of most, beyond most people's comprehension. It's just, I mean, I guess you could say they're subliminal, but they're not subliminal because, I mean, you can see it if you really look for it, but most people aren't going to take their time. They're being so entertained by the movie, they don't notice these things. But these symbols are in every walk of life today, and everything in every, I guess you could say, piece of media we look at. There's these hidden symbols. They're all around us that we don't notice every day and then it's like when you finally see one, then you'll notice it from then on.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. Just like 9/11, sometimes I wake up and my clock is on 9/11, a lot of times actually, but I'm not looking for it, but it's there, and that's not to really say anything. I don't really believe it means anything, but since 9/11 has been a big subject since 9/11, then you'll see the pattern all over the place.
Right.
Yeah, but so let's go into his name. What does his name really stand for?
Okay. In the original comics, of course, it was, a pantheon of, I guess you say it's an admixture of gods and titans and demigods. And, but the first, I guess the S represented Solomon. And, as we're said, he was told to have all the wisdom of Solomon, but it even went more than that. And, let me give you just a breakdown of what gave him the power. He was said to have superhuman knowledge. Captain Marvel has exceptional photographic recall and mental acuity, allowing him to read and decipher hieroglyphics, recall everything he has ever learned, and solve long mathematical equations. Instantaneously, he can make intuitive guesses based on limited data to the point that his guesses are almost always correct. Also, he has great understanding of divine phenomenon in the mortal world. It gives him clairvoyance. Captain Marvel has an uncanny awareness of his circumstances that allows him to turn disadvantages into advantages. Also gives him the power of hypnosis. Through sheer power and magic, he can hypnotize people for a length of time, and then only those with great willpower can overcome this ability. And this one interests me. He's omnilingual. He can speak every language known to humans, as well as ancient or dead languages, and is able to understand aliens. That's the power of Solomon that Shazam possesses when he says the word.
All right, so it's just a warping of what it really is. And
exactly.
Even other attributes, hypnotism is of the devil too. I mean, I know some people out there are for it and whatever, but you look up Mr. Mesmer, who helped to pioneer this technique. He wasn't necessarily a good guy, and he's one of the reasons why we have nightclubs today. He did these experiments in these nightclub type of settings, and we took that idea and made nightclubs out of it in our modern time. So that's a little tidbit for you. And what is said about people using strong willpower. Well, the suggestion to words and trinkets and stuff usually work on simple-minded people. That's a fact. And so that's why they put this in here, because, they say if you're strong-willed, you're able to get out of his grasp. That's getting out of the hypnosis, getting out of the mind control. So anyway, it's just deep stuff to me, but go ahead.
Okay, and then the H, of course, stood for the strength of Hercules. And, of course, he was not a god, but he was a demigod. He was, half mortal. It says Billy Batson has incredible super strength. When he said Shazam, he has stalemated Superman in an arm wrestling contest and has managed to match the strength of an Eclipso possessed Superman when he wasn't holding back, and has rendered Superman unconscious. Says Captain Marvel has moved and destroyed massive objects. He has fought warriors such as Wonder Woman, Superman, although both of them have defeated him. Captain Marvel refrains from such power displays as physically moving planets, although given his abilities against Superman and Wonder Woman, such feats would be within his ability. So his super strength is an ability to lift or press volumes of mass far in excess to that normally possible for a human being functioning in Earth's gravity. I mean, if you had anything to add to that.
Well, I mean, I've always seen him like a clone of Superman anyway,
Right.
All of this godlike strength And Superman gets his power from the sun, which is symbolism for Horus anyway, right? So yeah,
Correct.
I totally agree with what you're saying there.
Okay, A is for the stamina of Atlas. The titan known as Atlas has limitless endurance. Atlas cradled the earth for a time immemorial. He can overcome tremendous physical resistance. His superhuman ability lends to his ability to stay as Captain Marvel for elongated, or Shazam is elongated periods of time. He can survive in space and fight seemingly endless battles, such as his fight with Black Adam. So he's got self-sustenance. He does not need to eat, sleep, or breathe as Shazam. That was interesting. His superhuman stamina, his incredible metabolism endows him with practically infinite endurance and inexhaustible stamina. So that's what the power of Atlas. Of course, Atlas was the mythological titan that supposedly was sentenced to hold up the earth by Zeus.
Yeah, and there's some contradiction going on in there in the description, because if it was so, why did the wizard get old and weak?
True.
You know? Go ahead.
Okay, Z was for the power of Zeus. Of course, he was the god over all the other gods there in Olympus. And he was the god of the magical lightning bolt. So this is where the lightning power comes in. It says Zeus' power, besides fueling the magic thunderbolt to transform Captain Marvel, also enhances Shazam's other physical and magical abilities. His power reinforces his physical invulnerability and resistance against magic spells and attacks. He can use the magic lightning as a weapon. He can summon Zeus's lightning bolt to strike his opponent. Zeus's lightning may be used to create mythic apparatus, restore damage done to Marvel, and act as a power source for magical spells. He knocks Superman unconscious with the speed of Mercury, and with his fist, here we go, there's those hands wrapped in lightning bolts.
Mm-hmm.
Magical resistance, physical enhancement, and this also leads to his interdimensional travel. It says this can only be used to travel to the Rock of Eternity, but then once he gets to the Rock of Eternity, he can travel into other dimensions from there.
Right, and that's a part of the movie that we really need to pay attention to in this part of the movie. If you go see it, or if you see it later on a rental or Blu-ray or something like that, the interdimensional travel in this movie, they have these little doors that open up, and what you see there are reptilian beings, and also the insectoid and other things. But see, the reason I say this is so important to look at is not just because of the interdimensional travel and the reptilians and insectoids, is because people that are taking ayahuasca trips and DMT, they are saying that they're being communicated by reptilian-looking beings and insectoid-looking beings. It's all fallen angel demonic stuff. So if this is real and these people are not seeing it, sometimes they're seeing it in a group setting, not individual. So it's not a hallucination. So again, these people that made some of this stuff up have been in contact with spirits to get these stories written. It's just a fact.
I'm so glad you brought this up because, I mean, this ayahuasca and ayahuasca, I heard you say that, and the DMT, this stuff is gaining popularity, and you can see it on the internet. It's growing like wildfire. That people are I guess taking these trips with this, and as you mentioned, they're all seeing the same thing. I would think if I was on some kind of drug trip or was in some kind of trance, I wouldn't be seeing the same thing unless, as you mentioned, it's some kind of demonic apparition they're seeing.
Yeah, exactly. And even one of the demons said, "I am ayahuasca." I'm like, what? So you can't make this stuff up. It's what's going on in reality and what's going on in your comic book and your entertainment. So there has to be somewhere in the middle where there's truth. They present it to you as fantasy, and for the most part it is. But there's a reality to it, and if you don't figure out what that reality is, you'll never really get around what you're being taught. Go ahead.
And then also the lightning gives him advanced healing. So if he's injured in battle, he can call on the magical lightning to heal himself and mend his wound. A was for the courage of Achilles. Of course, we know Achilles, he was another of the demigods. I believe his mother was a nymph, so he wasn't exactly all mortal, but it says he has the courage of the Greek hero Achilles, which in battle, and while in the Captain Marvel form, allows him to wield great bravery and spirit. The Shazam is blessed with an innate and harmonious goodwill, all divine cheerfulness that is characterized by this trademark grin. It gives him a perseverance that pushes him to always confront a challenge with a knowing optimism. Invulnerability. Shazam is virtually invulnerable and resistant to all types of physical injury. Is resistant to damages on par with beings such as Superman, but without the weaknesses. So he doesn't have the krypton there, or the kryptonite weakness to kryptonite such as Superman does. Optimism. With the courage of Achilles combined with the wisdom of Solomon and his boyish personality of Billy Batson, this creates a certain kind of optimism, which Shazam is supremely known for, able to smile down most opponents and using his powers in special ways other than fighting. Captain Marvel will forever remain the staple Boy Scout. So the Achilles gives him courage.
Right. And there's a message going out to young people in a lot of these movies. A lot of these superheroes are orphans, or they'll have one parent, or
Right.
they'll have a substitute parental structure, like, say, Spider-Man with Aunt May and the uncle. And the uncle, guess what? He died, right? So, and it begs the kids psychologically to believe that they could do it. They could be who they want to be without their parents grounding, and they take on life on their own as these God men. It's basically training us and the children, whether you believe this or not, doesn't matter, but it's training us to accept transhumanism, New Age, being gods, and all that stuff. So I just want you to hone in on that too. Go ahead.
Yeah, and and we've talked about some of the commonality between the movie Captain Marvel there in this film, and going back, it goes once again back to, I remember in the end of this movie, as he's fighting the doctor there, and his family's all around. He remembers the words of the wizard, to look into his heart.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when he tells his family to go and grab hold onto the staff and say Shazam.
Yeah, yeah. And what the writers do very cleverly is, these children who are innocent and don't have a clue what's going on, and they find out that Billy is Shazam, and he basically opens a portal for them to walk into. No one questions it. They question it maybe a little bit, but not enough. And they should be totally weirded out by everything, and it is there a little bit. But the stuff that these kids go through in the last act of the movie, let me tell you, if you're a normal kid and this was reality, you would be terrified.
Yep. Exactly.
Facing all these demonic creatures, and you don't have the whole. Once they grab a hold of the staff and they get this power, they're siphoned off portions of the power. So some will have speed, one have strength, one have wisdom, and blah blah blah. So, maybe I'm ranting. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, but the point I was getting to though was he had to look within for the power. The ultimate, when he was put to the ultimate test, he was told to look within for the power, and that was the same thing in the Captain Marvel, same message. When she needed to release her power, she was to look within. And that's the main message that these movies are promoting, that power from within. That is occultic in nature.
Yeah.
Our power comes from above, not from within. What God, Jesus said, from within, that's where the murders and the sorceries and adulteries, they all come from the heart. That's what's within us.
Yes.
The only thing that's good within us is what God put in us.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from above. What's within us, in our person, in our humanity, there's nothing good in us.
Yeah, Colossians 3 says there's sins that are lurking within us, and we have to subdue those sins. And that's why the wrath of God is coming to this planet. And this looking within thing is also a humanistic teaching, humanistic, new age, new thought, and it's all over the place. I've been seeing this for years. Humanity can save itself. We are the top of the food chain, and we don't need any outside force to help us along through our destiny in life. That's the message. Do what you will, do what you want. You have the power in you. You have God in you. Well, I'm here to tell you guys, no, God is not in everything, and he's not in everyone. The only way you get God inside of you is to submit yourself to the authority of Jesus Christ and what he did for you on the cross. That's it. So if you're walking around thinking that, God is in me and I am God, your religion is faulty. Go ahead.
Yeah, Romans 7:18, Paul says, "For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing." He says, "For the will is present within me, but how to perform that which is good, I find not." That's what Paul said. He said, "There's nothing good within me," and there's nothing good in any of us innately. We're born with this sin nature, and it's only through the power of Christ that we're delivered from it. Right. And as you mentioned, it's just this humanistic teaching that's going around today, that we're our own savior, that we just have to look within and we can save ourselves.
Yeah. And the Bible has some clear teachings about witchcraft, magic, pharmakia, and I won't read all of them to you. And this is from a website, so I don't have my my King James open here. But 1 Chronicles 10:13, it says, "Saul died because he was unfaithful to the Lord. He did not keep the word of the Lord, and even consulted a medium for guidance." Then in 1 Samuel 15:23, it says, "For the rebellion is like the sin of divination, and arrogance like the evil of idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as king." You have in Leviticus said, "Do not turn to mediums or seek out spiritists, for you will be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God." Then in Leviticus 26, it says, "I will set my face against anyone who turns to a medium or spiritist to prostitute themselves by following them, and I will cut them off from their people." And let's go down to Revelation, where the wrath of God is being poured out here. And this is right before Christ comes. And it says in Revelation 18:23, it says, "The light of a lamp will never shine in you again," speaking of Babylon. "The voice of bridegroom and bride will never be heard in you again. Your merchants were the world's important people, but your magic spells, all the nations, by your magic spells, all the nations were led astray." And Revelation 21:8, "But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderous, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters and liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death." And finally, there's more, but I'll just leave on this one. Galatians 5:19-20. "The act of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity and debauchery, idolatry and witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, decisions, and factions." And this right here describes most of the stuff we said earlier about, you're not, if you have selfish ambition, that's self, But anyway, this whole thing about witchcraft, it's of the devil. We cannot cheer on these things and feel good about ourselves if we belong to Christ.
Exactly.
And as far as movie reviews go, some of you might wonder, why are you guys doing this? Well, I used to look for movie reviews from Christian sites, and guess what I found? Nothing with substance, just stuff that scratched the surface. And I got sick of it. I'm like, no, I need to do my own movie reviews, And so here I had, I did stuff with Rory. I'm here with Kevin Shrum, and I did stuff with Through the Black. And this is deep material that helps you to understand clearly what's going on. No surface level stuff that leaves you questioning, And the subway cart in the original comic, it said, describing the car, it says, suddenly a strange subway car with headlights gleaming like a dragon's eye roars into the station and stops. No one is driving it, right? So it's like a possessed machinery. It's has eyes like a dragon, and you could go all sorts of places with that. Just remember the word dragon, and it had no one driving it. Okay.
Wow.
So
He was off to see the wizard.
oh yeah, he's off to see the wizard, like in the Wizard of Oz, right? And as far as the acronyms go, there's a female. I don't know if it's his wife or not because I didn't read enough of the comics. But Mary Batson, who is Mary Marvel, right? She also uses this acronym, but she draws powers from basically goddesses: grace of Selena, strength of Hippolyta, skill of Adrian, fleetness of Zephyrus, beauty of Aurora, and wisdom of Minerva, who is another clone of Isis and all that, right? Warrior goddess and all this stuff.
That is his sister.
That's his sister? Okay, that's his sister. All right, so
Left off M on the Shazam. That was for the speed of Mercury, and that enabled him with superhuman speed and for flight. And then just one more thing as far as his abilities. This one of these gives the fact that he actually has remote viewing capabilities along with his clairvoyance. And then he has temporal viewing. It says he can ability to look into the past and function just like dimensional viewing. These powers allow the historama to cleave through the barrier to show the occupants of the Rock of Eternity what transpires in other dimensions and even other time.
yeah, so basically he's like a god. And also, you said the speed of Mercury. For those of you that don't know, this is the same attribute that the Flash has. And the Flash, his power is not of his own, even though in the comics he was hit by lightning, again, lightning. And he can run, he's the fastest man alive, but he's controlled by the speed force, the force, this demonic force I keep talking about, this energy. And within the speed force are these elemental gods. So you got to always bring this back to elemental magic, the demonic power, Lucifer, enlightenment, illumination, and all this stuff. So I think if you listen to enough of these breakdowns, you get what I'm saying. If not, welcome to the show. And there's more to talk about in this movie, but it could take 2 hours, you know? So we're trying to keep it short and just give you the most condensed version we can to get you up to speed on what's being put in front of your face.
Once again, I think we mentioned this on the Captain Marvel as well. Just, hope by something we say just to get you digging, and then just to show you the times we're living in. We're living in dark days. We're living in what I think are pre-tribulation days. I just here in our area this week saw, a man up in his 60s killed his wife and then committed suicide. I mean, when we see these demons being released in this film, that's a mirror of what's going on in our society today. I mean, there's demons are being released, and I don't know by what means they are being released, but they are being released, and that's got to be what's charging some of the people to do the things they're doing.
Yeah, I've gone down a litany of articles about what people are doing to their children, their husband, their wives. I had something personal happen in my life that, man, this is reality. And in South America and overseas, and obviously even here, there's an uptick in demonic activity through drugs and other means, and people are walking around possessed. And you can find this in the news easily. So double check what I'm saying, and you'll be surprised. Especially, we mentioned ayahuasca, we mentioned DMT. There's also flakka and bath salts, if they're not the same. And you look up these stuff. It's on YouTube. It's in the news. people are losing their lives and their minds, depending on if they're still alive or not. And people are getting thrusted into hell in a handbasket. So you couple that with what's going on in your entertainment and where it's leading you. And again, it's not that everybody that watches this is going to start doing XYZ. Obviously, we're not, right? So,
Right.
But it's still a warning. It's still a warning because we have heard stories about people that have been influenced by certain types of entertainment, whether it be the movie Charmed or the TV series or Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Was that the Annabelle movie that the person got possessed?
The Conjuring.
Oh, okay.
It was The Conjuring.
You know, mentioning the Annabelle movie, though, there's an Easter egg in this movie. I'm glad you mentioned this. With the Annabelle doll is in that pawn shop.
Oh yeah.
You know that he's in there with the cops. That Annabelle doll is there on the shelf.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, but I guess the director producer here, he worked on Annabelle.
Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah, they always try to put their little Easter eggs in there and whatever. But yeah, so I think this was a fun breakdown. And if we find out more, best believe we'll do another video. But thanks for joining us, and thanks for coming on, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. And hey, everybody out there, you know who? Jesus Christ is Lord. You gotta turn to him today. And this is our breakdown of Shazam. If you like our videos, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to get all our frequent updates.